this really brings this into sight. Why it's so important that it's being done here. You can put your chair on the side, you don't have to sit right in front of it. You just come to correct me, I know.
I'll go out your way.
There's two
Yeah.
chairs. Yeah.
So one of the key things about this building and the culture, apart from it being a press, because the presses were in there, upstairs on this side there were different masts, and that building at the end didn't exist, so they'd take the mast out through the back door, out onto the beach, and then they could have then kind of sorted out for their boats. And then on that side they had net lofts, and you can still see the tar on the floor up there from when they used to do the nets. Yeah? And then I have been informed by somebody in this room that they then take the nets out to the island once they've been and bitumen them on the rocks out there. Yeah, so we go out there onto the island, you see the rocks, and there's all the black bitumen over it. That's why they did it the days before kind of health and safety. But as I said, they called 6.5 million in 1905. That is the other side of this wall. Yeah, that's their 6.5 million fish catch that was pressed here. So, and that is basically you're kind of here, the other side of that wall. And this, they were really proud because you look at them, they're all in their best bit of tuck up. Yeah? Doesn't want to go back through. And St Ives Council was so pleased that they made it the 1905 Christmas card from Town Council. So the image has got quite a resounding kind of effect within the town. Yeah. So that's why we kind of went for the idea of the two people, the two guys, the basket, the brick, because it's particular, the basket is particular, and that. But yeah, that was at 1905. I looked at the red pilchards and yeah. So anyway, right. I'm going to first go on about. I'm going to bore you to death about myself first, and then if that doesn't work, I'll try something else. So, James, could you do the lights?
Yes, I will.
Right, here we go. I was born into a pottery family in Newman in the 60s. There was 5 big potteries in Newman at the time, and they went through till the mid-70s before the Chinese wiped them out with their imports. So my father and mother were the potters, so we used to have a big pottery business in there. So I kind of always grew up making stuff, making pots, plates, throwing, casting, playing with clay and all that kind of stuff. And it was in the Narrows at the top of the Old Quay, so this is right opposite the Old Quay. We had a coffee shop, and he came down after the war and knocked down 3 cottages and made the bottom into a pottery, and we lived upstairs. It's 42, 43 and 44 Street, a bit like Beatles really. Yeah. So did all that, obviously went to school down here. Mike Praed and John Piper were my teachers when I was at school in the art side. I went to Manchester. I went to Falmouth to do my foundation. I went to Manchester to do my degree in sculpture. I came back and then I worked with a chap called David Kemp, where we made sculptures all over England, big ones. And then what happened was I started to paint. I did lots of paintings over on the Isles of Scilly. And that was just after they had that big snowstorm, the real big cold one in the late 80s. And they lost the Australian terrace, and there was a commission that they ran through, I think it was Andrew Garden, to redo this terrace, and they wanted a fountain to be built at the bottom of it. So I know the guy who owned it, so he said, could you come up with an idea? So I kind of went back into sculpture, after a long time. So that's the Agony fountain in Tresco. So we designed all this, and this is a fountain that I built for them, which was, they used it as kind of their main image for quite a while. So I kind of went into fountains. And over at Hull Bay, I did these kind of huge, big abstract stainless steel sculptures, yeah, which actually I'm still making today, oddly enough. And that was in the Hull Bay Hotel, because Hull Bay Hotel got taken over and had an upgrade, so they wanted some bright, colourful sculptures to go into the courtyard. So I was kind of doing that with that. I also did these big magnolia fountains for places like Trewhiddon, the other side of Truro, and for Arley Hall up in Cheshire. If you've ever seen Peaky Blinders, the brick place where they live, that's Arley Hall, yeah. So this was the one that went to Arley. But so, and I worked with Newlyn, with Mike from the Copper Works in Newlyn. So this is all hand beaten bronze, yeah, and then welded together. And the water comes out here and it cascades through the leaves, and that's like about 6.5 to 7 foot across. So I've done like kind of lots of metal beating over the period. And then there was this one, the Newlyn Fishermen Memorial. The people at Newlyn wanted a memorial because before all the new safety regulations came in, they lost a lot of people in the late 80s and 90s. They were being, it was like regular, so they wanted to create a memorial for them, for the fishermen. They didn't want any art people involved, any kind of arts bodies, because they didn't want to be dictated what it was. They wanted a fisherman. They didn't want. There were various kind of ideas that we just want to an empty space to show that the emptiness in our hearts. But I was trying to explain that's just nothing. So in the end, we came up with this idea of a fisherman on his compass in a ripple of water, yeah, thrown. But this is a landing line, which is the first line they throw. It's a very small lightweight line with a knot on the end to get up onto the quay, and then you pull up the rest of the big rope. So that's kind of it, and he's aiming towards the gaps over in Newlyn. So that was kind of like the big kind of bronze casting memorial. That was done in North Wales. I made the maquette, and then it went up to North Wales, and I lost a bit of control over it when it went to North Wales, because it was in North Wales, which is why the Mariners here I'm keeping in Cornwall. A, for the money is locally spent, and I've got more kind of opportunity of working on it, which I'll get onto in a minute once I've gone through this a little bit. So I'm just showing you kind of, you know, big abstract sculptures in bronze over on Sillies. Abstract sculpture, Angel, the Angel Ludlow up in Ludlow for, yeah. And this is one of the big bronzes that we've got on Trusco that we did, being patinated up in Castle, which is the place up in Wales that I used to use. I did high street furniture to make money, for town deal, for the town jobs in Penzance. I was lead artist for Penzance High Street. I also did midway markers for the South West Coastal Footpath, which is ones at Paul Fallow. And I worked with a writer, and we went to Paul Fallow and we did a meeting, and there was like 7 people left in the original village. Yeah. And what we did was we kind of took what they told us about it, yeah, like fish, ducks, rats, no love lost, and all this stuff. And then we kind of made it into a poem, which I found this granite laser table up in Plymouth, because there was very little money in the shop. We laser cut that, put it on it up there. And they said, oh, when it was in, they said it's a bit of a tombstone. And I said, well, yeah, it is, because that's what it is. Paul Fallow had gone from being a very tight community to zero community, and it is a marker of what happens in time down here. And then I've worked for some big stately homes where I've done kind of big flower sculptures. This is a 4-foot flower sculpture that sits on a big vase in an Italian kind of pagoda. That took about 11 months to build, because after I built it, he then wanted it painted. So that's all painted, which kind of drove me insane. I couldn't do another commission for about 3 years. And I tried to get out of it. Like, you know that famous saying, well, I'll just keep putting the price up and it'll go away. I became slightly wealthier, but more insane. So, but recently I've gone back, we've been playing with, backing other sculpture. This is I did just last year, for the Cinnamon Trust, and the Cinnamon Trust looks after people's dogs and animals. If you're ill, or you've got cancer, or you're dying, they'll look after your dog. They'll take it to you for like a day so you can see it. They'll take it for walks. When you die, they'll look after it and in their kind of kennels. The only problem they've got is they die, and their graveyard is like the opening scene of Private Ryan. There's all these like grave things. So basically, they wanted a different way of doing it. So what they've got, he's got this tree, and then bronze leaves, oak leaves, which they get all the dogs' names engraved in and stuff. And then basically they fit them to this plinth, and then they'll roll over this plinth. Then they can add more plinths, so you get this whole floor of the names of the dogs on the leaves with the sticks that they would have run with their masters. That was, I did 2 of those last year. And now we are in the Mariners Memorial. The gentleman in here kind of asked me to look at it in the beginning, and we kind of found those photographs down in the museum. Came up with the idea of a quick sketching clay. I mean, this is the really first thing I ever did with it. And that's like 2 guys, ants, a plaque, and a rough thing of the clay, yeah. So once they kind of agreed that kind of basic kind of idea, then we've seen the one that you've all seen, which is modelled in a plasticine called Chevin, which you can heat up and it gets soft. And when it cools down, it gets hard, so you can cut back into it. So again, that's crude. And actually, once you start working on the big one, you realise how crude this is. The basket created a lot of problems now because it was too small. But it was just trying to get it to work right. So, and I know you've probably all seen this because you've all. And then to fundraise it, what we've done is we made a series of the small ones by scanning that Chevin sculpture, shrinking it, printing it, silicone moulding it, casting it in wax, and then casting it in bronze. So these are the ones that we've used to actually fund it. So like that's the first start, the wax and the bronzes. So once we actually started selling, which we did quite well, we've been very well supported by the town, by visitors and stuff like that, we decided we better start with what was never going to happen. So we printed it at life size from the original 3D CAD drawing, just to see what it would look like, and there's my glamorous assistant. And then we took it down there. So this, I don't know if you all know where it's going on what they call the castle, which allegedly there was a castle there in the 1600s, I believe, or the 1800s. And this is, imagine I'm standing on Smeaton's Pier, the lighthouse is down that way, yeah? That's kind of Hale Towns at the back, and over this side, over the other side of that will be the lighthouse. So that's it at size that we carried down and tested it all out to see, you know, if it was right. And if we needed to make any alterations, but it needs to be that height to kind of work in that environment because it's very big, so you need as big as you can get, really. So it was a good way of testing it, which we did. So once we tested it, we decided to have to make it. So we used the chapel opposite, the Methodist Chapel opposite. So although this place would be perfect for the whole kind of history of pilchards and pilchard press and all that lot, they would have all gone to the Methodist Chapel opposite on a Sunday, yeah. So it's quite kind of, it happened purely by chance, but very romantically, that it was actually, we started making it, and I had it in there for 3 months whilst we built it, because you needed the height to stand back from it, and so you can see, because all the buildings in here are quite low. So we started beyond your, we had the foam roughed out by a milling machine over in Falmouth from the computer drawings. And then I was going to build it in 2 ways. I was either going to build it fully in clay, or I was going to use the Jesmonite, which is a casting resin, which you mix with, it's an acrylic and dust mix. And in the end, I decided to go for the Jesmonite way of making it, because I thought it would be a lot easier because of the weight, because it would be worth tons by the time you've skimmed that and done that. And there are various processes you go through that you can actually alter things, as I'll show. So basically, this is day one. We've got it in there. That's the life-size one, and that's the chapel. We had my glamorous assistant, all dressed up in the, which we got the sou'westers from the museum, yeah, and they are the most weirdest thing, because that's like an 18th century sou'wester, and it's not like a new one. It's so tight on the inside. It's like you get claustrophobic as you get in. You've got to get into it with your hands, and like you're diving into it. Yeah. Well, it's obvious because they don't want any water to get in. But it's kind of quite a weird outfit to be on, and you kind of, every time you move it in it, it's all like really tense and stuff like that, which kind of helped on the idea of some of the sculpture. Right, the basket, as I said, the problem with the basket that we had, it was too small, and I realised that when we got into the museum, into the making of it, and I realised that I kind of had to start with the basket and then work outwards, because obviously enlarging the basket changes where all the hands go. The hands then change everything, because that changes where the elbows are. That changes where the shoulders are. So we went to the basket. So to make the basket, Halford's copper brake pipe. Yeah. And I made a steel frame, a bronze frame round for that, and I sat there and I weaved it all the way around. Yeah. And the same there, and then on the bottom as well, because going back, it's got this open structure to let the water out, but it's still got to be weaved like that. And then the bottom, 3-core electric cable, no expense spared. So you have to weave like electric cable through for that, because you don't see the other side, because the other side will have fish on it. So basically, this all gets moulded. Yeah, I've got a mould of. Remember this bit here, that section there. I've got a mould to show you how the mould works in a minute. About how that is moulded, how that is then cast into bronze, and then you weld on the bronze bars and things like that. But that's, so we started with the basket, to get it kind of roughly wrong. And then whilst we were doing that, because we cut the basket out, because it had to go. And then we just started playing around, changing shapes, trying to create volume, trying to create a dynamic that was going on, working out where they're going to face, what they're going to do. And things change when you get up to size. It's a dramatic change. So here, I've fitted the basket. They haven't got hands yet, we're waiting on that. But we've got the arms roughly going in the right place, we've got the basket at the right size. I mean, it could even be bigger, because the one I got from the museum was bigger than that, but you've got to have some kind of constraint on it. So that kind of works well in there, and when you actually stand in front of it to that height, you'll have the sky through those holes, which is going to be really nice. So, and it's now on the plinth, which, to give it the right height. So it was built on the height that it will be, which is kind of quite important actually in the construction. And very nice to have that, the organ deal, very religious. Yeah. And as I say, that's the basket now, all built up in the sides and kind of ready for the next stage, which is, I got it to this point and then I moved it. I moved it from the chapel to my studio here, because it was easier to work on, because that place was so big. You could get all the scales right, but very difficult to get close up and work. So I moved it back into my studio, and you're going to have to indulge me on this now. I had some sea shanty singers that I know really well. And they came to the studio to come and see it. And they were so impressed with it. This was them. And that's it. It's in the studio. Yeah. Obviously, I've had to make a shorter plinth. Yeah. So I've dropped it. But over and over and verse 58. So, you've even wobbled it. Authenticity.
Jesus, my Savior, will pilot me over and over the sea, over the Jasper sea, safe in the arms, safe in the arms.
There you go.
Excellent, yeah.
They were the crew that were at the weekend. We had like 40 people in at the Penwith Gallery, and they did a whole session of sea shanty songs and poetry. And I think it's quite important that you involve people like this in the production and and yourself turning up during production so people understand what is involved in it, because otherwise you end up buying a maquette and you end up your name on a big one. You don't see this ridiculous amount of work goes in between it. So that's fun. So we're going back to the sculpture now, and I had to do the hands, and I didn't want to model them too much and make them too dynamic, so I decided to cast them. Yeah. So I used a thing called alginate. Yeah. And basically it's a 2-part mix. It's a seaweed kind of mixture, and the pink is not going off. When it goes off, it changes colour into white. So you have to sit there with and actually stuck my hand in and try and pour it with the other one. Yeah, and then you can get your hand out of it, squeeze your hand out, and then pour Jesmonite back into where it was. And interestingly, Jason said something quite interesting about the hands, because they're so realistic. It kind of goes back to that religious kind of feel of the praying and the actuality of hands within that kind of fishing community, which is right. So this was kind of like, it couldn't be that, then holding the basket, yeah? So I kind of fitted that into that block, and then wrapped that around that basket handle, yeah? So as to give like a real super realism on that section of the sculpture. And on the backs, yeah? So you've got these super real hands grasping the back of that. Still working on the angles. This is going to get softened up in time, but I still quite like, I wanted a reference to some extent, that kind of 1960s Hepworth angular sculpture that was going on within the St Ives at the time. So it's a little tilt towards the sculptural and artistic side of St Ives as well. So I'm not don't want it to turn itself against it, but be more a part of it. So you kind of get this kind of evolving thing happening with the hands and the basket. And remember, all this becomes one object of metal in the end. So it doesn't matter about changing materials. It's actually the shape you've got to be really kind of consistent with. So by the time we get to here, what I've done is I've kind of dropped this at the front, because that's where the fish are probably going to go, in clay. We've built this now into here. We've angled this lot up into their kind of suits. The heads are they're moving slowly, and they're still moving. So you kind of you've got this block of where you're going with it. And now it's kind of, it's working quite, it's working like it should do. And that was made in the studio. And the last bit is a video. Unfortunately, no music for this one, so don't look it up. But this one. So this is my studio. Yeah. That's the minnows, yeah. This has now got the clay fish on it. Yeah. The back of those hands. The beginning of the fish at the back of where the boat is. The boat rim is now put in. that's where all your fish will be coming through in the end. And again, we'll soften bits of this in the wax, but that's kind of actually how it fits. So that's kind of like roughly where we needed to get to before we went on to the next stage. So once we got it to that bit, it was time to, it's time to move. So this is its last few days in my studio. So we built this, it was already pre-built for this, it was on a metal structure, so we could build this kind of carrying cage that goes over the top so we could lift it. So we assembled it all, and then we took it out of the studio, and then we took it to Seamus's, who's a mould maker. So all this now has to be moulded before we can go any further, yeah? So as we come out of foam, we come out Jesmonite, we come out of clay, and we move into wax, which is kind of where we're going into at the moment. But first, you've got to cut there. You've got to cover the whole thing in silicone. And that's quite tricky, because what silicone will want to roll off, roll down there, and go everywhere where you're going with it. So you have to use a kind of thixotropic paste on it to keep plastering it back up. So basically what happens is you cover the whole of the figure in silicone rubber. The heads weren't done because what we did was we cut the heads off and made them as a separate mould. But that's quite a lot of silicone on there. And then you need to make a fibreglass jacket that supports the silicone. And that's got to be made in sections. It can't just be one big mould. So you're looking at about 8 pieces of actual mould that they've got to make. And that's it. This is it being made. So that's that original silicone jacket. The heads are gone. And now we're making the fibreglass jackets that go around it. So you can see with the joint, yeah. Yeah, and then this is Seamus having a tea break. And this is his sculpture, by the way. This is his big studio. So this then has the fibreglass jackets put over this. Then all the fittings go through there. So eventually, you can take it all to pieces, which took a bit of time. Take the object out, and then you've got the mould to lay the wax up, but you've got it in bits. So basically, if you can imagine, it's like you've got that, you cut the silicone at the back, so you end up with the mould piece, which is that size, and then you lay that up in wax on the other side. And you lay it up to 5 mil, because the bronze aren't solid, they're 5 mil thick. 5 mil is like kind of the optimum running thickness for bronze, really. So you make those in sections in wax, you paint them onto with wet wax. And then, well, not molten wax, not wet wax, molten wax, and then you bolt the mould back together again without the heads. And you go in from underneath, and then you with a heat torch, blend them all in together on the inside. Then you can take the mould off, and then you've got it in wax. So then you can do any correction work, put the heads back on, and you end up like what we had in the studio, but in wax, ready to be able to manipulate it even further. Because it's kind of an evolving thing. If you just said, right, this is it at the beginning, you'd have the basket too small, the figures wouldn't be right. It needs to evolve as a kind of project. So now it's kind of going into that wax stage, and you can change everything yet again. So, but that's not an easy mould to make. Shane's been cursing me, still cursing me. But those are the bits, yeah? So if you look at this bit, that's the bottom of the basket, yeah? And those are the hands, the negative of the hands, and that's the negative of the basket. And then all these bits bolt back together again, and they'll create the fisherman that we originally had in the studio. Quite a performance, and still you still haven't seen anything, you're just spending money on silicone. But we were at that point, and that wasn't that long ago. So, since it's kind of telling you where we are now, for those people who bought them, is that the mould has been made, And when you make the mould, and everybody think, oh, it's a fixed point. No, it's not fixed at all, because that's the inside of the head mould. Obviously, it's not pink, it's green. But that's the inside of the head. So basically what they do, they paint in wax, as I was saying, and they slowly build it up so it's about 5 mil thick. Yeah. And then they take it out of the mould. And you can, so that's the head outside of the mould. And what you can do now, this is what I'm kind of reiterating, is you can still manipulate it. So what I've got at home is I've got kind of a hot plate and a big metal bowl like that of water. And I bring the temperature right up in the water, and I can actually dip the whole head into it. And then I can take it out, and I can get my hand on the inside, and I can start pushing things like the hat, and start manipulating the shapes of the hat, like a little bit of facial features, and doing all that kind of, you can really, you know, it's like a lot of medium softness wax, so you can manipulate it. And then you can also use hot tools, so you can use a gas burner, and I've got metal modelling tools that I heat up, so you can then start softening the wax and scooping and making them, so you can keep evolving the sculpture into trying to make it as best as we can get it by the time we eventually go back to the foundry. So here he is, egg number 1, and that's the kind of the tank I just used, a little simple one, and that can drop in. We've got a bigger one for the body, and we can, as I said, we can, very angular at the moment, we can soften bits of that up. And it's great on the kind of that plasticky feel of the sou'wester, to be able to do that. And if you get it really quite hot, it kind of gives you that kind of real plasticky feeling, which is going to be quite important. Still working on the heads, working out how they're going to work, what they're going to be working, and I'm still going to be working on right to the last minute of driving them nuts. But this is one of those things it's my nightmare. So it's kind of like, that's where it is there, that's where we kind of assemble the arm now. And that's the last slide. So this is the other head. This is one of my other tools, which is a famously sculptural thing, a deep fat fryer, which you can melt the wax in. So you can keep soft wax, so you can work it, and you can close the lid so it don't catch on fire. So, which is quite handy actually, especially leaving it. So I can alter, I can build, I can reduce, I can change shape, and I can do all that. So that's the next phase that we're working on at the moment. The foundry has got all the body bits, and they're laying up the wax for the body. So what happens next? Well, in about 3 to 4 weeks, the whole body will be in wax. Then I'll go along with the heads, put the heads on, and then the team and I will do all the final work on it. We can put all for any finishing detail. If anything is like massively wrong, we can change it. Because the idea in the end is to make it as good as we can possibly make it. Because it's going to be there for a flipping long time. It's like the Newland Fisherman Memorial. When you make it, you don't realise it's going to might be there forever. And actually, Newland it will do, because they took it to their heart. It's like a main thing. They use it for all their posters and stuff like that. And I think the same is going to happen with this. Yeah. So we need to be able to evolve it right through to the end until we cast it in bronze. And we can still change certain things when we're actually in metal. So it's a matter of the financial support that you've given us to be able to do it, and we are getting there. And it just takes, we're doing it at quite a good speed actually, but it's being able to evolve the whole project into something which we all become proud of, and it's always down there. So that is where we are. If you've got any questions, go and ask somebody else. If you've got any questions, I can. This is what James used to put light on. Yeah, this smells of wine glass. So it's this, right? Just to explain moulding. You know, I was saying about the top ring of the basket. That's the top ring of the basket. That's the mould for it. So that mould, you bolt it together and you pull the wax in, wait for it to set, take the mould to pieces, and inside that bit is all that copper work that I did in there. And then what you do is you just pull that out, try not to rip it. You take it out, eventually, and then you can see all the stages, and then you've got all your rope work on the inside, and then as you peel that off, you'll get that in the wax. And then what you can do is you can sharpen that up again with hot metal tools by going back into it and reworking it. So, and then you've got all these lugs which kind of reference it all together so it doesn't move. And the whole body's done like that. The whole thing's made like that. That's why it's just taken such a bit of an epic. Everybody think, I mean, I've had some people say, oh, when do you paint it in bronze? And you can't. Bronze. Yeah, I'll just go down to get my Brolac out. But so this will be cast in wax, the same as the rest of it, the same as the heads. And again, we can manipulate it, we can change it, we can make it as best as we can to the end, but it's an exact copy of what is in there. Yeah? So that's the process. This, that's the fibreglass jackets. Yeah. So all that has to be made just to get a bit of rope in the right place. But it's been worth it in the end, trust me. So otherwise we wouldn't be doing it. But the other bits are huge because they're like got the whole body, the backs, the arms, the handles, everything. So it's quite an epic job actually of actually trying to get it right, because you've got the kind of creative, expressive bit you want to do, you've got the historical bit you need to get in there, and you've also got to make it. Yeah, and ultimately and ideally is to keep it all in Cornwall, so as the money's being spent locally. Because the problem I had with the fishermen, the new fishermen, as I said earlier, the problem I had was it was made in North Wales. So I gave them the maquette, which was that big, and then they phoned me up like 3 months later to go and have a look at it, because they made it all at the life size in clay. And you kind of like drive to North Wales and you get there and you think, oh God, I've got to be creative with it. And you get out of the van and you're absolutely shattered. And you just kind of only got about 2 or 3 days doing the finishing work. Whilst keeping it here, I can keep on finishing work all the time. Or you can sit and ponder it, we can go away, come back, we can do that, and keep working it all the way through. And we're kind of investing in Cornwall in some way with the foundry at Longdowns. And I think kind of it's a nice way of doing it because it is a local project, for the pilchard industry, and it's helping the art community by actually helping them have a new foundry in Cornwall. So that's it. So if you've got any questions, go on then.
I'm sure it's a really stupid question, but I'll ask it anyway. You've got a wax head.
Yeah.
How does that become a bronze head?
Ah, good point. That is the stupid question. The stupid bit is I forgot to tell you. Right. Okay. Right. Right. Alas, the Yorick, I knew them well. Okay. Pretend that's the wax head, right? And it's hollow. Yeah. I can show you in a minute. It's hollow. So it's all hollow. That's 5mm thick. So you got that in wax. So then what you do is you stick wax tubes onto that with like big blocks of wax on the top. Yeah? Probably 3 or 4. And they're called runners and risers. Yeah. And the runner is where you pour the metal, and then the risers is where the air comes out of the mold. Right? Well, I haven't explained the mold yet, so I'll just about to. Right. So once you've got those wax runners and risers on, you dip it in ceramic, liquid ceramic, and it's got grog in it. So grog is pre-fired clay. So basically you dip it in, I think it's about 12 times. You dip it in once, you dry it, dip it in again, dry it, and they do that 12 times. So you've got the whole thing's covered in a ceramic shell, which is about that big. And you then put pins through it just to hold everything together. Then what you do is you go to the foundry, you fire up your crucible, you put this in the kiln upside down, and it melts all the wax, and all the wax comes out down those runners and risers, because you have the tubes, you put the tubes in so to exit the mold. So then that becomes a hollow void inside that ceramic shell. Yeah. Then what you do, at the same temperature, because it's got to be at the same temperature, you then turn it the right way up, and then you pour, because you pour the bronze into the runners, which then fills all that space that was left with the wax, and then the air comes out of the risers. So you then got all that going on, and the reason why it's got to be the same temperature is because of the thermal shock. If you just pour a lot of bronze into the mold, it just bang. So it's got to be at the right temperature, the same temperature, so nothing thermally shocks itself. And then it cools down, and then you think that living daylight's out of it, you break all the shell off, yeah, because you don't need that anymore, yeah. And then you end up with like that head, you like these metal tubes coming up, so you then cut those off, dress those, and then you've got it in bronze. And then you've got to weld that to the other bit, to the other bit, to the other bit, to the other bit. Yeah, because that's how they'll all be done. Like they'll be but with the ceramic shell cast, you get a surface finish. Yeah, there you can ceramic shell cast, you can sand cast. Sand cast wouldn't do it because with the ceramic shell, you don't have to worry about undercuts because the wax comes out. If you make a sand mold actually has to separate. So if you've got undercuts, there's a nightmare. And they sand cast on like ship's propellers or like big abstract kind of smooth sculpture. But ceramic shell casting is the way to go, detailed cast. And that's how you do it. It's basically followed in a clay mould.
Do you know, at what point do you know that it's right, or the bronze is where it should be?
Well, when it comes up the risers, and that's it all in.
Yeah, there's no air holes.
There's no air holes, because there shouldn't be, but you need to work, it can vent through the mould. The air, that's the great thing about ceramic shell, it can vent through the ceramic to a certain extent. And you don't know until you smash it home. It can happen. And I've had them before when they've cast it and they ain't put enough metal in. No. Or they've done it and they've got the temperature wrong, and as the core at the top, as it's cooled, it's created a void going back down through it because it's contracted the wrong way around. So that's become a bit of a problem. But that's why you've got the mould, you just lay it on wax. Cast it, work out where your mistake was. If you need to put another riser in or another feed, you can do that. Because the other problem you've got is you've got around that on the big bits, like on these, we need these still. When these are in wax, we still need to cut these down into small bits because metal, obviously, it expands when it gets hot, and actually when it cools down, it contracts. But if you've got a different kind of odd shaper, it will contract and not be exactly where it's supposed to be. Yeah, which becomes a bit of a problem when you've got to stick it back together. So we put reinforcing bars, reinforcing wax in the wax with its cast, and then when they make the mould, they then put steel in the mould to stop it from contorting too much. But you can still cut it and grind it and weld it. I mean, that's, it can still evolve when it's in metal, because most of my stuff I built directly in metal, my other sculptures directly in metal, so you've still got that opportunity at your other end. But it's a good question, because not a lot of people get that idea of the ceramic shell mould. Does everybody get it? Or do you want me to go through it again? I'll be asking questions later. But that's how they all do it, yeah? So all the foundries do it. And it's kind of, it's a great way of doing it. Do you have any other further questions?
When you do an addition,
Yeah.
obviously, you know, if you do an addition of 9, but you want to see how it sells, who looks after the wax mould when it's dormant? Because you wouldn't do 9 all in one go.
I wouldn't do 9 big ones like this.
No.
Well, that's the thing. Once it's signed off with this, it goes in the skip, which I regretted doing with the new Fisherman Memorial, because I nearly sold another one of those to the head guy of Hawaii electronic telecom people. They came to St Ives and they came to my studio, and he didn't speak a word of English, but he had this interpreter, and he bought like half this gallery, like half my studio, and then I had the model of a fisherman, and he tried to buy a copy of it, and I actually got to go to the foundry, and I said no, we've got a demand. So I could have actually sold another one to China, nobody would have been any the wiser. But then it would have been a listening device for Hawaii. And I think Trump might have put a import tariff on it by then. So, but the additions, with this, I've got the last 7 I've got to sell, well they're all done. I need the last 7 to sell, and we're over the line, and we're in and done. We're pretending they are going to, well not pretending, we're having optimism that they are going to sell, we've sold them in the first place. So we're keeping working at it. The foundry guys are now laying these up in wax. And I'm off to Valencia for my little trip. When I come back in a couple of weeks, they'll have that together. I'll grab the wax heads from in there, we'll put it together. I'll send out another photograph if everybody's bought one, and it's on the mailing list so you can actually see. We are now at this stage, yeah? And we are really, once we're in wax, and I've okayed it, it's just metal work. It's just yeah. Yes.
Can I ask the time factor?
The time factor?
You know, because the process, there's so many processes, and I don't think people realise the amount of time.
It does take a lot of time. But I spoke to Joe, my foundry guy, and we're looking, I was being optimistic looking January, but he kind of bent and we went February.
But from beginning to end, that's what I'm
God.
talking. I know, but I think people need to know.
How
When
long
did
has
you-
it been since
When
you
did
came
you
and saw me?
start?
4 years.
4 years. 4
Yeah.
years from an initial
See, that-
idea and that first
And that's
day thing
constantly, yeah.
to getting people involved, working out, because the gallery has been great, because the sum up machine they use on the thing to take the money for the little ones, all that money just goes directly into the Mariners account. Doesn't go through the gallery, that way you don't get a novel for 20% VAT, you know, so you've got all that support and all that money, but it still takes the time to get that together. And yeah, 4 years.
That's Norman's fault.
Yeah, I blame Norman. But it's been great because it's been funded by, it's like Newlyn. Newlyn, they refused to have any Arts Council money on it. Completely refused. And they raised the money locally. They knew what they wanted. And they got what they wanted. And they're very happy with it. And I think St Ives is, hopefully, is the same. Whilst you can go to Penzance, and between Penzance and Mariside, you can see where Cornwall County Council spent £100,000 on wood sculpture of branches that were sandblasted, concreted into the ground on the cycle path between the two. Breaks my heart. But also, what it does, it brings people together. All the people who bought one, all the people that are part of it, the people who have worked on it. St Ives, it brings everybody together on it, so it's not a piece of my ego says it's this. Thank you very much. Now, everybody's been part of it. I've had loads of help from people, I've had loads of support from people. And trying to involve the public as much as you possibly can. So they feel a part of it. I mean, that is, as I said, not an ice cream man in Sweden. And that was probably 1905. Yeah, so it's not that long away, really.
I was just say, we were fifth Cornish ports doing seine fishing like this. We are the number 1 in terms of volume, so it's nice that we've got that to talk about as well.
Yeah. So it brings up that whole point of saying I didn't know that much about seine fishing, to be honest, but I do know a lot about it. but I was from Newland, so they're trawl then, yeah. And there are photographs of the boats underneath all the bridges of the trains coming in, where there aren't any accommodations and no houses, it's just boats, more boats, more boats. And it's part of the history that you're never going to get back. And it gives you one chance that somebody might go, oh, what's all this about? Yeah, and then people see that the names on the side of the sculpture, they feel that they've invested into that, you know, people have invested into that kind of future of kind of remembering the past, not necessarily in a romantic way, but in a mass murder and pilchards way. Well, they were, I mean, you know, 63 million or whatever it was, late 18th century, I mean, that's pretty good going. Yeah, I mean, that's a lot of sardines. But they did go everywhere. I mean, they flew them out of Newland. If you ever go towards Mousen through the old quarry, you see a little jetty go popping out, and that's where they used to have the flying boats, where they used to fly them down to the Mediterranean. We never ate them, really. They all went to Med. They were really big on it. Apart from they had a problem during the Napoleonic Wars. Can't be boring. But there have been various stories about why it went into decrease. People didn't like us. But a lot of people blame the mines as well. Yeah, because St Ives actually, I'm not sure what they can ask to do a miners memorial. Because one of the things you forget that it was mining in St Ives. And I didn't know, but it was pointed out to me. But you know, you walk along the harbour and you see those metal stanchions sticking up out of the harbour walls. I always thought they were tying ropes up, being an innocent Newland guy, but they weren't. Those are the metal tubes for the vents that are in the mines underneath the harbour. Yeah, so when you see those, you look down and that's all venting. And people say that the mining, because the poison came out into the sea, kind of killed the pilchards. Whether that's right or not, it's a difficult one to say. Well, it could have been overfishing, or it could have been people just got fed up with pilchard. Yeah, but they're making a comeback. They just had a pilchard festival in Newland. Yeah, and I think they might have one in St Ives at some point, possibly next year. I know there's a fishing boat you will get the thing back next year. So, any more questions? Go on.
Yeah, sorry. Did you say that as part of the moulding system that you've got on the screen there?
Yeah.
Does that include the pilchards, or is it pilchards casting clay and added on?
Yeah, that right. Right, the pilchards you saw, they were in clay, yeah. But what they weren't the fully finished pilchards. Because what I can do, what I moulded will be there in the bronze or in the wax when it comes back to me. And if you can imagine, if you've got a surface like that, and you've got something sticking up like that, and you've got lots of things sticking up like that, it becomes a real nightmare making a silicone mould for that. So it's like if there's a fish's head coming up like that, or a fish's tail coming up like that. So what I did was I kept it all kind of moving through the. Actually, I'll pull it back. Yeah. So basically, what I'd be doing, I'm putting the movement of the fish. Yeah. Obviously, there ain't gonna be that much fish coming out of the basket, but that's irrelevant. It's a river of fish. So it's like a river of movement. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make clay fish, like half bodies, and fish's tails, silicone mould those, lay those up in wax, and then work out and have them and fit them onto this, yeah? So we work out whether you actually get fish's heads, fish's tails, so it's not just flat, they're all doing this, yeah? And then take those off, cast them separately in bronze, get that cast in bronze, and then weld them to it, yeah? So then you can, this becomes a whole other flipping art form, because you've got that whole movement of fish, and you can have all the fish's heads and fish's tails, they can be going up, going around, and you can create a real three-dimensional thing out of it. And it will also stop people sitting on it. So yeah, so this bit, yes, that's in the mould, but we're going to extend on that by actually casting fish's heads, fish's tails, and then poking around it, so it all looks like it's kind of jumping up and around. If you look at photographs, that's what there's chaos they're coming out. So kind of, and this is just really just trying to get that movement of them being chucked out, really. So yeah, that's the fish are still on. They'll become one of the most main bits of it. Actually, you just can't see them now. So, and when the silicone mould when we took the silicone mould off this, we lost lots of the detail that's on the one out there because it took us 5 hours to get the silicone off it. And it kind of takes off that top surface. You then wash the mould out, lay it in wax, and you get the surface back. But on the one out there, you've lost all that. And the reason why I put that out there is you get some kind of idea of what size it is. It's back on the original like plinth, and you can just kind of, through all you can see how big it is. Really, it's not as low as it is here because it's a very stubborn plinth. So you're looking up at it, and one is designated to look at you as you get onto that platform. So you get onto the platform, and you look at it, and one will be staring right at you. And then when you get closer to it, it's about this area. This one's looking down at you a bit like that. So you kind of get that interaction. You walk down through it, yeah. Which is kind of, again, it's that whole interaction between the viewer, and then you've got a fantastic landscape. It's a nice bay behind it. Yeah. Any other questions?
Thank you, Tom. Absolutely brilliant.
Right.